Human rights and English law. Human rights are fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every individual and are protected to ensure dignity, liberty, fairness, and respect within society. The human rights that are protected by English law are reflected in areas such as public order offences, police powers, interception of communications, the duty of confidentiality, obscenity, the torts of defamation and trespass, and harassment. Public order offences. A public order offence is a criminal offence where behaviour threatens, disrupts, or harms the peace and safety of the public and therefore justifies legal restrictions on certain individual freedoms. Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights protects the right to freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and share information and ideas without interference from public authorities. Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights protects the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association with others. The different types of public order offences are breach of the peace, criminal offences under the Public Order Act 1986 of riot, violent disorder, and affray, and illegal forms of assembly. Breach of the peace. Breach of the peace is a common law offence where a person causes harm, threatens harm, or acts in a way that is likely to cause violence or disturbance to others. Breach of the peace restricts Article 10 as the police may intervene to prevent speech or behaviour likely to provoke violence, as shown in Redmond Bate v. Director of Public Prosecutions. Breach of the peace restricts Article 11 as assemblies may be stopped or individuals may be removed where violence is likely to occur, as shown in Laporte v. Chief Constable of Gloucestershire. Public Order Act. Riot, violent disorder, and affray under the Public Order Act 1986 are criminal offences where individuals use or threaten unlawful violence, with riot involving 12 or more people, violent disorder involving 3 or more people, and affray involving 1 or more individuals, causing fear for personal safety. These offences restrict Article 10 as expression that involves threats or violence can be limited by the state, as shown in Director of Public Prosecutions v. Ziegler. These offences restrict Article 11 as gatherings that involve or threaten violence may be restricted or prosecuted to protect public safety, as shown in R. v. Howell. Illegal assembly. Illegal forms of assembly occur where a gathering or protest fails to comply with legal requirements or becomes unlawful due to disorder, violence, or failure to follow police directions. Illegal forms of assembly restrict Article 10 as the state may limit the way where individuals express views during protests where public order is threatened, as demonstrated in Director of Public Prosecutions v. Jones. Illegal forms of assembly restrict Article 11 as the law allows authorities to regulate or remove assemblies that are no longer peaceful or lawful, as shown in Austin v. Commissioner of Police of the Metropolis. Police powers. Police powers are the legal authorities given to the police by statute and common law to prevent crime, investigate offences, and maintain public order while balancing the protection of individual rights. Article 5 of the European Convention on Human Rights protects the right to liberty and security of the person and states that no one should be deprived of their liberty unless lawful procedure is followed. Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights protects the right to a fair trial, including the right to be presumed innocent, to have legal representation, and to have a fair and public hearing. Under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, police have the power to stop and search individuals and to arrest and detain suspects. Stop and search. Stop and search is a police power that allows officers to search a person or vehicle where they have a reasonable suspicion that stolen or prohibited items may be found. Stop and search restricts Article 5 as it temporarily interferes with a person's liberty while they are detained for the search, as illustrated in Gillen v. United Kingdom. Stop and search restricts Article 6 as the use of suspicion-based searches can raise concerns about fairness and justification in criminal proceedings, as shown in Castorina v. Chief Constable of Surrey. Arrest and detention. Arrest and detention is a police power that allows officers to take a suspect into custody if it is necessary and as long as there are reasonable grounds to believe that the person has committed or is about to commit an offence. Arrest and detention restricts Article 5 as it involves the lawful deprivation of liberty where a person is held in custody, as demonstrated in Fox, Campbell and Hartley v. United Kingdom. Arrest and detention restricts Article 6 as the treatment of suspects during detention can affect their ability to receive a fair trial, as shown in Murray v. United Kingdom. Police and Criminal Evidence Act. The Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984 sets out the procedures that police must follow to ensure individuals' rights are respected, which are the right to legal advice, the right to have someone informed of the arrest, and the requirement to follow codes of practice. The right to legal advice is a safeguard where a detained suspect must be allowed to consult a solicitor privately, and this respects Article 5 and Article 6 as it protects the detainee's liberty and ensures a fair legal process, as shown in R.V. Samuel. The right to have someone informed of the arrest is a safeguard where a detainee can request that a friend or relative is notified of their detention, and this respects Article 5 and Article 6 as it prevents unlawful detention and supports fairness in the legal process, as demonstrated in R.V. Hookway. The requirement to follow codes of practice is a safeguard where police must follow detailed rules governing detention, questioning, and the treatment of suspects, and this respects Article 5 and Article 6 as it ensures lawful detention and fairness in criminal proceedings, as shown in R.V. Aspinall. Interception of Communications. Interception of communications is the monitoring, accessing, or recording of private communication such as telephone calls, emails, and messages by public authorities. Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to respect for private and family life, home, and correspondence. Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act. The Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000 allows the government to authorize the interception of communications and the use of surveillance where it is necessary for national security, preventing crime, or protecting public safety. This means that public authorities may legally monitor or obtain private communications as long as it has been authorized, which restricts Article 8 as it interferes with an individual's right to privacy, as shown in Malone v. United Kingdom. Investigatory Powers Act. The Investigatory Powers Act 2016 allows the government to collect, retain, and access large amounts of communications data, including internet and telephone records, through warrants authorized by senior officials and approved by judicial commissioners. This means that authorities can carry out bulk surveillance and require communication companies to retain user data, which restricts Article 8 as it interferes with private communications and personal data, as demonstrated in Big Brother Watch v. United Kingdom. Duty of confidentiality. The duty of confidentiality is a legal obligation that requires individuals who receive private or sensitive information to keep it secret and not disclose it without permission or lawful justification. Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to respect for private and family life, home, and correspondence. Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas. The duty of confidentiality respects Article 8 as it protects private information from being disclosed without consent, for example in Campbell v. Mirror Group newspapers. The duty of confidentiality respects Article 10 as it recognizes that freedom of expression may justify the publication of certain information where there is a public interest, for example in Attorney General v. Guardian Newspapers Limited. The duty of confidentiality balances the two articles by requiring courts to weigh the importance of privacy against the importance of freedom of expression before deciding whether information should be disclosed, for example in Re S.A. Child. Obscenity. Obscenity is the publication or distribution of material that is considered morally offensive or likely to deprave and corrupt those who view, read, or hear it. Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas without interference from public authorities. Obscenity restricts Article 10 as the law limits the publication and distribution of obscene material in order to protect public morals and prevent harm, for example in R.V. Hicklin. The torts of defamation and trespass. Defamation is a civil wrong where a false statement is communicated to a third party and harms the reputation of another person. The torts of defamation are libel and slander. Libel is defamation in permanent form such as writing or broadcasting, whereas slander is defamation in temporary form such as spoken words. Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas. The torts of defamation restrict Article 10 as the law limits what individuals can publish or say about others in order to protect reputation, for example in Reynolds v. Times Newspapers Limited. Trespass is a civil wrong where a person intentionally enters or interferes with another person's land, goods, or body without lawful justification. The torts of trespass are trespass to the person, trespass to land, and trespass to goods. Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association with others. The torts of trespass restrict Article 11 as individuals who enter private land to take part in protests or gatherings without permission may be liable for trespass, for example in Appleby v. United Kingdom. Harassment. Harassment is behavior where a person repeatedly causes alarm, distress, or intimidation to another person through actions such as threats, abuse, or unwanted contact. Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights is the right to freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas. Harassment restricts Article 10 as the law limits certain forms of speech or communication where they cause serious distress or intimidation to others. The laws on harassment respect Article 10 as courts must consider whether restrictions on speech are necessary and proportionate when protecting victims from harassment, for example in Madrowski v. Guys and St. Thomas NHS Trust. Thank you for watching this video on human rights and English law. I'll see you in the next one.